I'm Adam Whitney. I'm a metalsmith. Traditionally, I focus on silversmithing techniques, but I still primarily use a lot of range of metals, so I consider myself a metalsmith. And I'm now a resident at Penland School of Crafts. And this is a 3-year program, and this is my studio. I went to art school right out of high school, and I was going to be a painter or a sculptor. And then I took a jewelry class. I didn't even know it was an option. But one of the biggest draws for me was the size scale. I could take that work that I made in my first year of schooling and put it in my suitcase and travel home, as opposed to giant welded projects or canvases. So it was really utilitarian. And then I transferred to Virginia Commonwealth University, and one of my probably strongest mentors was Susie Donch, who was there. And that's when I started developing my work a lot more. My current body of work is all silversmithing techniques of angle raising and chasing and repoussé. So I take flat sheets of metal and I form them into volumetric vessels that are 3-dimensional. And what I love about the process so much is that you start off with a particular mass of metal and you cannot add to it or do not want to take away from it. So you need to create your 3-dimensional sculpture out of that flat sheet.
What type of tools do you use, and are there any that you use all the time? I mean, I see a variety of what look like anvils here.
Yeah, so we call these all stakes, and these are all raising stakes. And I kind of have them set up like a drum set, really. As I work through a project, I'll start with one, but I need to switch to multiple ones often. So the traditional stake is just a T-stake, like you see here, and there's a lot of different variations of them. And then over there you can see more on the stacks, and then a large assortment of hammers. Every hammer is like a different finger pushing on the metal, so I need to either push hard, push light, or have a broad surface, and everything needs to be very clean. So mirror polish is ideal or extremely smooth. So when I work, I make a lot of noise as well. You know, you can draw an exact shape that you want, but you may not be able to make it because you don't know how much material you need or if you have the correct shape equipment. So all these stakes, I have a lot, but I want 3 times as many because I'm constantly wanting something else. And I don't know what that is until I want that form out of the piece that I'm working on. It's frustrating. So nobody makes these anymore.
Oh, wow.
Like that one behind you, I got that from basically Tufts, Boston Museum of Fine Arts School. That, if I saw that on eBay, I would spend at least $3,000 on it.
Wow.
Because nobody else has them. And if I hired a blacksmith to make something that large, it'd probably be around that cost. Yeah. So a lot of these were poured, and like this is one you can still purchase, but the guy that sells them has a few of them. I do a lot of eBay like alerts, so whenever anything comes up on eBay, I buy it up, and then I sometimes have to make my own. The style I use, the process and the techniques are very traditional, and a lot of the work that I look at is maybe 1000 BC. So honest historical examples. So those are like, you know, both of them were at a show at Harvard. Honestly, the things that have changed, somebody is still striking a piece of metal on top of a stake. It could be wood, it could be metal, it could be an antler with a rock or with a hammer that has a handle on it. That basic process has not changed at all. What I do use is newer materials, harder steels. I have this beautiful chair that I can raise my body in, and I have lighting. But I try to not use technology in my work. So like 3D printing, rapid prototyping, laser cutting or anything like that, I may use it to make my tools, but I really want all my work to be handcrafted, and that's the only way it can be made. Not that I like dislike the technology, it's just a choice that I've made.
Is nature important to your work, either in subject matter or the materials that you use?
Not really. I don't focus that much on nature. I do have some organic designs that I put on the surface of my work, but I'm not really emulating something that I walk through the woods. Some of the materials I use are straight from nature, and they're really the best materials. I use a substance called pine pitch to shape my work, And I've used plastic, similar quality, new technology, and it's just not as good at all. The traditional pine pitch to work my work is by far superior to anything new that's come out.
Well, how do you choose what materials to work with?
So I stick to non-ferrous metals, which is basically copper, brass, bronze, sterling silver, all the silver family alloys, gold, and if I can afford it, platinum or palladium. Ideally, I would love to work in silver all the time. It's just a beautiful material, but it's expensive. So I do a lot of my prototyping and copper. And then when I want a different color, I go for brass or bronze. Stirrup cups that I'm entering into the show, and I started making these in 2016 when I really devoted myself to the style of silversmithing that is traditional. And the stirrup cup is known as a greeting or parting cup, and throughout kind of all of Europe, when people traveled to your castle, say, you would greet them with this cup with a drink in it, and since you were in the stirrups of your horse, it didn't have a base, and you'd pass it around, and it was a way to kind of say, we're not going to poison you, we'll drink from it, you drink from it. Definitely not COVID friendly in these days. And normally they had animals like a stag or a fox or a hound, something that you would encounter through the woods, and now it has kind of shrunk in size, and they still use it for fox hunts. So they're more cordial size, and they're cast instead of hand raised. But these are all raised from a single sheet, and then the interior, you can see that thin material, and then it's chased and reposéed. So after hammering it into a cup-like object, you fill it with pitch, like this cup here, which is a hard substance. And then you can use a whole bunch of these small chisels to kind of start to shape and mark your work. You can also hammer directly on this, and through repetitive courses of hammering, you can start to sculpt these objects. These figures are all based on sea monsters in the corner of like old 18th century maps or 17th century maps. And for me, like looking at those maps, I was always in love with those weird sea monsters that somebody drew, and after doing more research about it, it was kind of like a filler just for the map, but it was at a time where we didn't know what was past that, and they kind of put the scariest thing, or not even knowing what a whale really was, and that's what sailors talked about. And when I started this choice of making really strange work, I didn't know where it was going to lead either, so I thought these were great like totems. And really, like, the set has 4 right now, and I want a 5th one made out of gold. And when I have enough money to get that, I'll make it. And it'll be a new learning lesson for me to work in gold at that scale as well. But it'll probably take a while.